Moodle. Yes, I am recording it as well. Okay. So now I'm going to use the PowerPoint slides or PPT slides presented by Clement sir himself, because I am still out of time to make PPTs, new PPTs for you guys. So I'll be using these PPTs of prepared by Clement sir. So and I'll be sending you these notes as well. Okay. So we came to a conclusion on electrodynamics, that what is electrodynamics? It is some kind of interaction between charges. It is study of charges, either they are moving or not moving or whatever. And today's lecture, I'm assuming that we know what is electrostatics, we know what is magnetostatics, and we know electric field in matter, electric and magnetic fields in matter. So this is the general. I'm assuming that you guys know all these things. These two you have taken, these three you have taken the course, and magnetic fields in matter you know by hysteresis. You did the hysteresis loop study in your previous class. So I hope you know this. Now I want to know from your end, what is your understanding on electrostatics, magnetostatics, and these things. So kindly anyone tell me what is electrostatics in your mind. No definition is inaccurate, no definition is incorrect. I am asking what is in your mind. So your mind, no answer is incorrect. Just you need to tell me.
So if electron is at a steady position, then we learn the behavior of that electron.
Yes. So steady charge. Can I say steady charge? Generalizing electron
Yes,
with
sir.
proton or anything?
Yes, sir.
So we are talking about charge which is not moving. So this not moving charge will generate an electric field, and you studied this electric field, how much the electric field will be for how much charge you studied this. So if there are 2, 3 charges, 4, 5 charges, hundred and thousands of charges, how will the electric field around this charge look like? So we studied it there in electrostatics. Yes, wonderful. Can anybody tell me what is magnetostatics? What is your idea of magnetostatics? Just like when I was a student, my idea of magnetostatics was that you keep magnet on the stationary point, and this is the understanding of magnetostatics. Any vague idea that you have of magnetostatics? Which my idea was wrong,
Study
of
of
course.
magnetic field.
Study of magnetic field, definitely, but magnetic field study we are doing in this part also, the magnetic fields in matter. So what is different in magnetostatics? Why we are calling it static? That is what I'm asking about.
Sir, not static. The
Huh?
difference is.
Huh? Yes. No, a magnetic fields in matter is also static. So when you studied hysteresis loop, what you did was you placed a material inside the magnetic field. So there is a magnetic field, a B field, let me say B field. You place the matter in there. Now you change the magnetic field, then magnetic field inside the matter changed, and you got this beautiful hysteresis loop. Something like this. I don't know how to draw it. Yes, it is like this. You can draw it like this. You got this beautiful hysteresis loop out of our studies. In magnetic fields in matter. So in magnetic fields in matter, when you apply magnetic fields to matter, maybe this remote is a matter, maybe this mouse is a matter. In any matter, if you apply magnetic field, you get steady magnetic field. But why we are calling magnetostatics as a different subject? What is difference? Just like in electrostatics, the
Sir,
charges were
not
stationary.
not changing with time. That's why.
Yes, thank you,
Study
thank
of
you.
magnetism, where there is steady current.
Yes, so steady current. Two words we listened. One is magnetic field is not changing with time. Thank you for this answer, and thank you for the other answer. We are talking about steady currents. So steady current. What do we mean by a magnetic field not changing with time? So B is not a function of time. We write it like this. In magnetostatics, magnetic field is not changing with time. And in steady currents, what do we mean by steady currents? Can anybody throw some light on this? What do we mean by steady currents? Why we are using this word steady?
Current which does not change with time.
Current width does not
Does
change
not
with
change.
time. Yes, that is certainly one way of putting it. Yes. So current which does not change with time, or we can say current density, which this is current density. Whenever I write J, it means current density. It is current per unit area. So current density is current per unit area, and it is a vector quantity definitely. So current density is not changing with time. So del J by del T is zero. That is what we mean by steady current. Thank you. So current is not changing with time, or current density is not changing with time. So how can we say if this is a wire? I'm drawing so many things. So let me pull out a whiteboard. Yes. So if we have a wire, and in this wire there are some electrons, if they are flowing, then how can we make sure that current will not change with time in this wire? How can we make sure? If electrons will keep on moving, then current will not be affected with time. But if some electrons are piling up here, there are some electrons who came from here and they are piling up here, then current will definitely change with time, because they are piling up here, or they are being generated from this point, because a wire is made of conductors, and at some point in conductor, maybe it is behaving as a reservoir of electrons. So there are so many electrons coming out from that side. So their electrons are, in this case, electrons were piling up somewhere, in this case, electrons are coming out from somewhere. So there is sink or source of an electron. I should not say sink, because they are actually, there is a clutter of electron. Wherever there is a clutter of electron, the current will depend on time, definitely, because the electron came from here, and you won't find all the electrons here, because if they are constantly moving, then you will find all the electrons here. But now there some electron came from here and they are piling up here, so not all the electrons come here. So current definitely depends on time in this case. But whenever there is no piling up of charge, then current is independent of time. And whenever there is no piling up of charge, then in whole wire, the current density, the charge density is also independent of time. So this is also equal to zero, because there is no piling up anywhere in the wire. So charge density is also independent of time. It is just, at first we defined the charge density, and now it is constant. So charge density is also independent of time. And since charge density is independent of time, now you can say you studied something called the continuity equation, which looked like this: divergence of J equal to minus del rho by del T. And if this guy is zero, then this guy also has to be zero. So we can say that for steady or stationary current, I can write it like this: for steady or stationary currents, divergence of J is equal to zero. So in magnetostatics, we studied the currents for which divergence of J is zero. Are we all on the same page on this? Any doubts in this point?
No.
Okay, thank you. So now it is our purpose to study something called Maxwell's equation. So Maxwell was a guy, he's a scientist, a beautiful scientist, a great scientist. And what Maxwell did was, he combined all the known laws of electricity and magnetism before his time. So what he did was nothing new. He was reading, he was just assume him as a student. He was reading, and he thought that, let me combine all the known laws of electricity and magnetism and try to combine all those laws in mathematical format. So till now, few laws were known for electricity, laws were known for magnetism, few laws were known for interaction between electricity and magnetism. But what he did was, he combined them and made all the laws into few good-looking equations, so that it is easy to use. They are easy to use. So Maxwell did was, all the non-physics, the non-electrodynamics till that time, he put them into beautiful 4 equations. Actually, at his time, he put all these things into some 22 or 16 odd equations. But due to the help of this gradient operator today, we are using those only 4 equations. We are just changing those all 22 equations into just 4 equations. Just by use of this gradient operator, we can do this. So this is the beauty of mathematics. That's why we have to use mathematics in this. So what Maxwell did was, he first started with Gauss law. He knew that if you put a charge, just as somebody told me right now, if you put a charge, it makes an electric field. It generates an electric field, and that electric field can be written by Gauss's law. This D is electric displacement vector. I hope you have studied this. Epsilon 0 E plus polarization. If there is any polarization in the material, it is written like this. D is electric displacement vector. It is directly related to electric field. Gauss's law can be written like this. Other way to write the Gauss's law is divergence of electric field equal to rho by epsilon 0, if you are writing it in vacuum. But if you are writing it in matter, you should write it like this. So divergence of D equal to 0 was Gauss's law. Then what he knew that you can't have just as you have a monopole of charge, you have only positive charge or only negative charge. That is called monopole. If you combine these two guys, it is called dipole. But if you have you can have a monopole of charge, or you can have a monopole of negative charge, but you cannot have a monopole of magnetic charge. So magnetic monopoles do not exist was a phenomenon known then to Maxwell himself. So he wrote it in the mathematical equation that if you have a magnet, you can never have a field line which are diverging. If you take a magnet, this is the magnet. If you take a surface outside the magnet, then you cannot have the divergence of this magnetic field line. You can never have the divergence, net divergence of this magnetic field line. What you can have is that there is a magnet, there is a surface considered. Now you are looking outside, looking from outside the surface. How many lines came out from the surface? The same number of lines went inside the surface through the other end of the magnet. So you cannot have a net divergence, and that's why net divergence is zero, because magnetic monopoles do not exist. The same guy came up. Same guy actually what the same guy actually combined the other law as well. So there was a scientist called Faraday, and he was doing some beautiful experiments. So before Faraday, there was a scientist, a school teacher named Oersted. What he did was he was showing some experiment to his students, and in that experiment, he was working with electrical circuitry, just as you guys are working. Or if some of you will be some primary teachers, Oersted was a primary school teacher. So if some of you are going to be primary teachers, then this is a wonderful example for you guys. Oersted was a primary school teacher. Now what he did was he was showing the bulb, how bulb lights up whenever you connect it to a DC battery. Now by accident, he kept a compass there. By accident, he didn't meant to, but he kept a compass there. Compass is made up of magnet. That hoka yantra we say in Gujarati. So this is compass. He put a compass there, and whenever he started this, connected this switch, there was a switch, and whenever he connected this switch, then he found out this compass's needle deviated a little bit. But then when switch was connected, the needle stopped deviating. But in just at that moment, this needle deviated. It was a very instantaneous thing, but it was Orsted's genius that he noticed this, and eventually did some experiments on this and found out that whenever you change the current here, there is a change in magnetic field here. So this current is nothing but the magnetic field. Okay, this current generates magnetic field. It is not nothing but magnetic field, but this current generates somehow magnetic field. But directly this current does not generate magnetic field. Whenever you change this current, it generates magnetic field. Faraday took this to a next level and did his law of induction, and it is being used in generators as well. You electronic students must be knowing that generator and electric motor are working on this principle of induction, which means that whenever you are changing magnetic field with time, then you can produce electric field, Curly electric field. It means, what does it mean is that if you are generating Curly electric field, let me represent it like this. Yes. So let me represent it like this, that whenever you are changing magnetic field, how to say this? If you have a loop, that loop is being connected. This wire is not actually connected. It is connected to both ends. This is the loop of wire. Now you connect it to a bulb, and whenever you pass a magnet from here inside this tube, then what happens is this: whenever you pass this magnet from inside the tube and take it out and keep it doing constantly, then there is a change in magnetic field as time passes into this loop, and that's why in this loop there is an electric current which lights up the bulb in the end. So this Curly electric field means electric field in a coil is can be generated by just changing magnetic field with respect to time. This is known as Faraday's law of induction. He also derived that. He also knew that, Maxwell, and he put forward the last law, which was Ampere's law for magnetomotive force. And what is it? Whenever there is a wire, whenever you pass a current through the wire, this J is current density. So whenever you pass a current through the wire, you will have a Curly magnetic field around the wire. So this is a wire, and there is a Curly magnetic field. All these four laws were known to Maxwell. But now what happened was that Maxwell found out eventually, these all four laws were there. Maxwell eventually found out that these three laws are valid for static as well as dynamic field. What do we mean by dynamic field? Can anybody tell me?
Where the current will vary with time.
Time, definitely. Where the currents or charge density as well. So charge density and currents, magnitude of charge density or currents will vary with time. Whenever they will vary with time, whatever you see that these three equations are still accurate. Whenever currents and charge densities, or whenever we are talking about field, means if electric field is also function of time and magnetic field is also function of time, in that cases as well, these three laws hold exactly true, because in those cases also, when the charge density depend on time, this field also started depending on time. You cannot have a divergence of magnetic field even in the dynamic field. So even the field is changing with time, still you cannot have this. Okay. And whenever you change magnetic field with time, that is what is generating electric field. So this is absolutely valid with dynamic field. So if you are changing something with time, so fields are dependent on time, still these three laws were valid. But this law was not valid, as we tried to uh, as Maxwell tried to see it, this law was not consistent with his known observations. So what was Ampere's law for? This was Ampere's law. We call it Ampere. So this was Ampere's law for magnetomotive force, and it was derived from steady state observations. What do we mean by steady state observations? It was derived from static magnetic field. So if magnetic field changed with time, this was not holding true. This was what Maxwell found out. Can anybody have? Does anybody have any question till this point?
No, sir.
Okay, so how did Maxwell found out that this law is inconsistent with the dynamic state? Let's see this. So Maxwell found out that something is missing in this equation by taking divergence on both sides. In this equation, he took the divergence on both the sides. He took divergence on both the sides. So this is divergence on of curl. And eventually, you must be knowing from your simple vector calculus that divergence of curl is always zero. So this is divergence of curl is zero, and if this side is zero, then the right side has to be zero, and that's why Maxwell found out that this side is also zero. If you are taking Ampere's law's divergence, then both the sides, then this side is zero, and that's why this side also has to be zero. But divergence of J is zero only for what? Divergence of J is zero only for stationary current or steady current. Just as we found out in the very first slide itself, that otherwise divergence of J is written like this with the help of continuity equation. I wrote it somewhere, I don't know. So yes, I wrote it in the whiteboard. So this continuity equation governs the divergence of J if this rho is not independent of time. So if this is not equal to zero, then they both are not equal to zero. So divergence of J is not equal to zero in case of dynamic current. Means if current is changing with time, then divergence of J is not equal to zero, and in that case this equation fails. In that case, I'm sorry, yes, in that case this equation fails, because this is valid only for steady current which is not changing with time. But if current is changing with time, then charge density is also changing with time. Then from continuity equation, this divergence of J must not be zero, but this left side is always zero, because it is a vector identity that divergence of a curl is always zero. This side is zero, but this side is not zero in in case of dynamic currents. So Maxwell found out that this law is derived from steady state observation, and it will not work in dynamic field. So how to change this law to work in dynamic field? So Maxwell found out this, and that's why he got the Nobel Prize. Just to find this out, he got the Nobel Prize. The actual method of finding him out was a little bit different. We'll talk about that in the end. But we'll talk about more rigorous method, which is containing more mathematics for now. So actual method from which Maxwell found out that this there is something missing is not this, that taking divergence both sides and knowing that this term is zero, but this term is only zero in the case of steady current, so this is not working for dynamic current. The actual reason was something else, which we'll talk about in the end. But let's now talk about this, that if divergence of J is not equal to zero for dynamic currents, then what is zero for dynamic currents? So for dynamic currents, this relation known as continuity equation always holds. You have studied this. Just kindly confirm. I know that you have studied this, but kindly confirm that you know what does it mean. Oh, so yes. So if you have a road, let's say suppose, okay, you know what these terms are, right? This rho, what is rho? This charge density.
Charge
This is
density,
charge. And what is J?
current density.
Yes, so you know these terms. So what does it physically mean? It physically means that if you have a road, let's draw a road. Okay, my drawing is the world's best drawing, so kindly cope up with it. So if you have a road, and in that road, let's take the vehicles as the charges. So in that road, if there is some piling up of vehicle, that means traffic. There is some piling up of vehicle, that means traffic. That means the charge density. That means the vehicles coming from this side and passing through this next side decreases. So this charge density, there is some piling up. So this density of vehicles in this region depends on time. So it is not equal to zero. In that case, you will definitely see that the vehicles will start going from this way or this way, और इधर से बीच से निकालेगा rum rum करके, वो कुछ भी करके इस ट्रैफिक को तोड़ने की कोशिश करेगा, तो पीछे वाला व्हीकल होगा. If there is a collection of vehicles here, then you have went through Ahmedabad streets. You know how we drive on the Ahmedabad streets. We'll try to go on the footpath as well to just come out from this. So this is our divergence. So if every charges the current density, this is the just the analogy for the fun part of it. So the current diverges to reach out the other end. Okay, and it is because of this piling up the charges. So current diverges because of this piling up of charges. That's why this is the reason, and this is the just analogy. This is not the actual picture. The actual picture looks something like this: that whenever you pass a current, and the current diverges only in the case of charge piling up somewhere. But in the case of vehicle, you can easily understand that they are not going straight; they are diverging themselves. They are not just directly going straight; they are diverging themselves. So this divergence of J you can see because of del rho by del T. This is a simple way of saying this. So this is a continuity equation. Okay, current density J always satisfies this condition known as continuity equation. In the dynamic state also, this condition is being satisfied in the dynamic state as well. So what you can write in place of rho, and okay, so this divergence of J is not equal to zero in case of dynamic field. Okay, so divergence of J is not equal to zero in the case of dynamic field. So what is divergence of J? What should be taken in the place of J? So Ampere's law in present form is not consistent with dynamic field. Whatever sir wrote here is, it is not my PPT, but I'll write whatever I will say this. Whatever I wrote, it doesn't mean that I wrote this PPT. Okay, it is sir's PPT. I just made one or two things changed here and there. Okay, so it is sir's PPT. Now, so whatever I wrote here is that this divergence of J is governed by del rho by del T, but in case of stationary current, this is zero. But in case of dynamic current, this is not zero. So Ampere's law in present form, this form, is not valid, not consistent with dynamic field. And Maxwell found out that there is something missing with J. If we add something into the J, so that the divergence of that J plus that added part equals to zero, then this divergence of left side is always zero, then right side divergence can also be zero. So you need to find out this missing part, and Maxwell identified this missing part as a way out. What was that missing part? How did he found out? Just simple, by using continuity equation, divergence of J equal to minus del rho by del T. And from the Gauss's law, we know that divergence of D equal to rho. This is from the first equation. So in the place of rho, we wrote divergence of D, and this divergence operator and del by del T operator commutes. It means that you can write either del by del X or del by del Y. You can write them if you are operating this, or you can write it like this. Both means the same thing if and only if f is exact differentiation. This is mathematical term, but whatever I meant is you can interchange both of these guys for D, because they both are operators, and both the operators commute. So you can interchange their positions. Always remember that del by del T and divergence are the operators OPERATURs, that commutes. So they are the operator which commutes. So you can write divergence outside and minus del by del t inside. So you had this minus del d by del t. And divergence of j equal to divergence of something else. You take this term on the left side, so it becomes minus becomes plus. So it becomes divergence of j plus del d by del t. So this is how you found out the missing term in j, that you, if you add this term into j, then divergence of this whole term will become 0. That's why Maxwell replaced j with this in Ampere's law. So eventually the corrected Ampere's law became this: curl of H equal to j plus del rho by del t. The corrected Ampere's law became this. And this last green term in the green range, it is called displacement current. Maxwell called it displacement current. Maxwell called this term displacement current, del d by del t. So here, after adding this term, now if you take divergence on both the sides, it is going to be 0 on the left side also, and it is going to be 0 on the right hand side also. So eventually Maxwell fixed Ampere's law, and after fixing Ampere's law, what happened was he added something called displacement current, and now this equation, this is now official fourth equation of Maxwell's equation, and this equation now is the fourth law, which tells you that if you can now generate curling magnetic field by two means. One is by current. If you pass a current from the wire, you can generate curly magnetic field. The other way is by changing electric field with time. You can generate this del H by del T. So by changing changing electric field with time, you can generate del H by del T. Okay. So let me give you a simple. Okay, till this point, if you have any questions, this is the final form of Maxwell's four equation, and this is over. The topic is over. Now I'll be talking few things which are something else. That I'll be talking what is displacement current and all those things. So till this point, if you have any question.
No, sir.
Anybody else?
No, sir.
Okay, how many of you are asleep? Had a good food in the afternoon and feeling asleep. Okay, so let's start with what is displacement current. Okay, you guys know that you can ask questions, right? You can interrupt me anytime, you can ask questions, because I would love you guys to see participating. If you are asking questions, that means you are participating. So it is a very proud moment for me. You are participating. Yes. So let me talk about displacement current now. Okay, so whenever you have the question, just ask directly without raising your hand or anything. Just ask, turn your mic on and stop me anytime. Okay. So we are talking about something called Maxwell's equation, and Maxwell added this extra term called displacement current in his equations. Now, for the first part, we saw that how he added this term by his mathematical genius, that he took divergence on both the sides. Actually, at the time of Maxwell, there was no concept of divergence, but in modern book, we are using this divergence notation. But this divergence notation was not available at the time of Maxwell. So how did he thought about this? It is an entire different story. I'll tell you at the end of the lecture, but you can see as an electronic student, I thought that this is the mathematical way to understand that there is something missing in this equation. Now there should be one physical way. There should be one way which is consistent with electronics as well, because you guys are student of electronics. So I thought that maybe I can find out something which is consistent with electronics as well. So maybe what we can do is we can consider that this is a capacitor plate. These are capacitor plates. And now you are passing current. You suppose you have a battery. This is shown as the resistance, but you can keep a battery here. So if you have a battery, then current passes in this direction, conventional current, and it comes out through this direction. Now, if you want to apply this, what we call Ampere's law, to find out that how much the magnetic field is on this boundary. If you take a rounded loop just around the wire, you want to find out that how much the magnetic field is around this boundary. How will you find out? Anybody of you have any idea how will you find out? Try to find out. I'm not saying that you try to find out like this, but anybody of you have any idea how will you try to do this? If you have a wire and you want to know how much is the magnetic field due to this current I on this loop, you did this in your 12th standard. I know this. So how much the magnetic field at the distance r from the wire? From the wire? Anybody? Okay. So you can do it by using Ampere's law. What you can do is you can do this. Integration B dot dl equal to I enclosed into mu 0, sorry. So mu 0 into I enclosed gives you the answer around this surface. So integration B dot dl, this closed loop integral around this loop, if you move around this loop by taking small elements dl, then you will eventually get this mu 0 I enclosed. What is I enclosed? Can anybody tell me? In this, did you saw this in kind of, have you seen this kind of equation or not? I want to see this. I want to just know. Have you seen this kind of equation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this is called Ampere's law without actual modification by Maxwell. This is Ampere's law. Okay, I will pronounce it as Ampere. Actual pronunciation is Ampere. We sometimes call it Ampere, but it is Ampere. Okay, the actual French pronunciation is Ampere. So I also learned it when I was in my BSc, so I'm using it since then. So it is Ampere. So this is Ampere's law. And what is I enclosed? IENCL. Can anybody of you tell me?
Current passing through the wire.
Current passing through the wire. But why am I seeing this enclosed? Why am I using this word enclosed? I should write, if current should passing through the wire, I should write I wire. Why am I writing I enclosed?
Sir, we are looking for the distance. We are looking at distance L, right? So the circle forming by that radius R and current enclosed in this circle is I enclosed.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. So this current enclosed by this wire only contributes in the magnetic field. So if I have another wire here carrying current I2, then it won't add to any magnetic field on these points. It will not add to anything in these points because it is not enclosed by this surface. Okay, so if you want to find out magnetic field on this surface, there is no contribution by this current. The only contribution is by the current which is enclosed by this wire. So you can consider this as a wire, and you can consider a ring. Suppose I don't have any ring, but I hope you can visualize. You can have a bangle, or I have a watch, but you can have a bangle going around this wire. If this is a wire, you can have a bangle going around this wire, and that bangle's surface, this wire, you can think about piercing through that surface. If you have a paper connected with the bangle, and you can think about this, that wire is piercing that surface of the bangle. I hope you are getting the picture where I'm taking you. So if you see here, I hope you can see this. If you can see here, this is the surface. This outer part is the loop where I am taking the integration. But why am I talking about I enclosed? This wire is piercing through the surface. Under the wire. Barabar. So it is piercing through that surface, and that's why we are calling it enclosed current. Okay, and if you use this, then you will find that magnetic field on these points P is going to be equal to, B is equal to how much? Mu 0 I upon 2 pi r. At distance r, you will find this after you solve this integral, because this integral is very easy to solve. You just assume B constant and take it out, and take dl over all the loop. It is equal to the perimeter of the circle, circumference of the circle, and it is 2 pi r. So you just divide it by 2 pi r, mu 0 I by 2 pi r in direction phi cap. So it is going in curly direction. Okay, this phi cap and all those things, if you don't understand, just focus on the magnitude. Okay, this I is the I enclosed, which is piercing this surface. Okay, now the beautiful thing about it is this I enclosed is the current enclosing this surface. But now it is not necessary that I take this surface, just the flat surface as I took. I can take any surface which is just having the boundary as this boundary, but surface can be anything. So you can think about like this, that if you can have a surface like this. Okay, consider it a round surface. So you can have a surface like this. This is also surface, just like our plate in which we eat. This is also surface, and following the same boundary, this can also be a surface. If it follows the same boundary, then this is also a surface, and this surface you can consider it as a this mouse. Okay, let me give you an example. My hand is a surface following this boundary. Okay, and following the same boundary, this mouse can also be the surface because its boundary is also coinciding with the boundaries of my hand. So both of these surfaces are identically capable of giving us the result. This is what the point of Ampere's law is. You can take any surface, just it must have the same boundary. ठीक है, उसका ये बाउंड्री सेम होना चाहिए सरफेस का. ये अंदर का सरफेस हो, फ्लैट हो कि वो बलून जैसा हो, उससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता. ठीक है, वो कैसा भी हो सकता है. तो अगर आप बलून जैसा सरफेस ले, ऐसा सरफेस ले कि वो कैपेसिटर के अंदर जाके आए, तो जैसे कि ये फोटो में, ठीक है, ऐसा सरफेस लिया कि जो कैपेसिटर के अंदर जाके आए, तो इसमें से अभी कोई करंट पियर्स नहीं कर रहा है. देयर इज नो करंट पियर्सिंग थ्रू दिस सरफेस. एनीबडी सी? कैन एनीबडी? डेफिनेटली, बिकॉज दिस इज द लूप and this is the balloon, complete balloon. So in this balloon there is no current piercing through this surface. So in this case, B dot dl is equal to 0 because there is no current enclosed in this. But then if B dot dl is 0, then B is equal to 0. So there is no magnetic field at these points. If we do calculation this way, but if we did calculation in the other way, there was a magnetic field of mu 0 I by 2 pi r on these points, each and every point of the loop. तो ये भाई दिक्कत हो गया. आप एक ही लूप के ऊपर मैग्नेटिक फील्ड कैलकुलेट कर रहे हो, एक सरफेस ले रहे हो तो आंसर आ रहा है म्यू 0 I by 2 pi r. दूसरी सरफेस ले रहे हो तो आंसर आ रहा है 0. विच ऑफ द आंसर इज करेक्ट? कैन एनीबॉडी टेल मी? कैन एनीबॉडी टेल मी? ऐसे मतलब व्हाट इज योर आइडिया कि भाई कौन सा सही लग रहा है? ऐसे आइडिया जस्ट ऐसे तुक्का मार दो, कोई फर्क क्या पड़ता है, इससे थोड़ी मार्क्स आने वाले. What is your idea? Which answer is correct? Okay, how many students are still there in the meeting and how many slept? Still there are 13 to 13. બધા છે. તો ભાઈ કયો આન્સર સાચો લાગે છે બધામાંથી બે માંથી? कौन सा आंसर सही लग रहा है? 0 वाला. बट जो हमारा नॉर्मल परसेप्शन है कि भाई करंट अगर इस वायर से जा रहा है तो इस वायर के आसपास मैग्नेटिक फील्ड होगा ही होगा. तो लॉजिकल है ना कि अगर किसी भी वायर से, हम वही तो कर रहे हैं, इस वायर से करंट जा रहा है, इसके आसपास मैग्नेटिक फील्ड फाइंड करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, वो तो होना ही चाहिए. तो हम सरफेस अलग अलग ले रहे हैं, उससे फर्क पड़ रहा है, तो मैग्नेटिक फील्ड तो एक्चुअल में होना चाहिए. यस, सो वन आंसर इसकी 0 वाला करेक्ट लग रहा है. बट नाउ आई एम टेलिंग यू, मतलब इसके ऊपर हम सोचने की कोशिश करते हैं कि भाई जब भी हम कोई भी वायर में से करंट पास करते हैं, देयर शुड बी सम मैग्नेटिक फील्ड अराउंड इट. There must be some magnetic field around it. So how can this answer be correct? अब आपको अपने आंसर में कोई मॉडिफिकेशन करना है? Which one of these two looks correct? More correct? Anybody? अरे कुछ तो बोल दो. A B दो ऑप्शन है, अभी दोनों में से कुछ बोल दो, या दोनों गलत लग रहे हैं. There can be any answer. Oh.
Mu 0 I by 2 pi r.
Okay, this looks more accurate, and for one student this looks more accurate. Now we are just waiting for one more response, which will be the tiebreaker.
First one.
Okay, so this is ties broken. Now this is the third match between India and England, and now India has won the series. Okay, so this third one looks more accurate because by logic there must be a magnetic field around this wire. Okay, तो दिक्कत कहाँ हुई? दिक्कत यहाँ पे हुई कि इस सिचुएशन में हमने एक बात का ध्यान नहीं दिया था कि दिस करंट कम्स थ्रू दिस पॉइंट बट चार्ज इज पाइलिंग अप ऑन दिस प्लेट्स ऑफ कैपेसिटर. कैपेसिटर की प्लेट्स पे तो चार्ज रुक जाता है ना थोड़े टाइम के लिए, वहां पे बीच में इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड बनाने के लिए चार्ज रुक जाता है. दैट्स व्हाई चार्ज इज पाइलिंग अप. सो दिस सिचुएशन इज नो मोर स्टेशनरी सिचुएशन, it is dynamic situation, and that's why in this situation you can't directly use the old Ampere's law. You have to use its modified form, which tells you that you can still have magnetic field at this point even if there is no enclosed current. but there is time when electric field is there. So in this region, there is del D by del T, because the charge comes to this point and piles up on this plate, and charge goes through this point and it leaves through this plate. So charge is continuously changing on both of these plates. That's why the electric field between these 2 points is electric displacement vector. What is electric displacement vector? It is nothing but analogous to electric field in the medium, in any medium. The electric field है वो vacuum में होता है, but this D is analogous to electric field in some any medium. वो कोई भी medium होगा उसमें electric field की जगह D का use करते हैं, so that medium can get polarized as well. So it can generate its own electric field as well. That's why we are adding both of those electric fields. एक इसका electric field और एक उसका खुद का electric field, and that's how we are getting this D. ठीक है, तो ये D टाइम के साथ चेंज हो रहा है because there are charges piling up on these plates, and because there are charges piling up on these plates, there is del D by del T in this region. So del D by del T also pierces through this surface that we took, and since it pierces through this surface, you can easily calculate that now D will not be 0. It is not just current enclosed in this surface, it is also del D by del T on this surface, and in this way if you will try to calculate, you will get mu 0 I by 2 pi r. If you will try to calculate, it is not necessary, but I think that you should give it a try. You can see the proof of this in the book by Griffiths. In the book by Griffiths, there is a section called How Maxwell Fixed Ampere's Law, Ampere's Law. There is a section called this, and in that section he calculated how del D by del T also gives rise to the same result. You can see that easily. So how del D by del T also gives rise to the same result. So in the region where there are no currents between two plates of capacitor, which dielectric material we generally keep? We keep vacuum, because it is highly dielectric. So it helps in very good electric field. So we keep vacuum here. So even in vacuum, there can be magnetic field. Even in vacuum, there can be magnetic field if the electric field in the vacuum is changing with time. So what does it mean? Okay, I also derived it here. Okay, so current flowing through the conductor wire is equal to I. It means dq by dt. Where now, if we talk about this example, then E, the electric field between these two plates, is sigma by epsilon 0. You know that electric field between two plates of capacitor is sigma by epsilon 0, and sigma is charge density, so it is Q by A, where A is the area of the plates of capacitor. Okay, therefore you can have I equal to dq by dt equal to, in place of Q, what you can write? Q you can write E into epsilon 0 A. So epsilon 0 A, and E is changing with time, so it is del E by del T, and which is going to be equal to epsilon 0 E is equal to D, so it is A times del D by del T. So total current here is A times del D by del T. So therefore I by A in this region where there is no current directly flowing, you can write I by A, which is equal to current density, is equal to del D by del T in this region where there is no current. So this was the another way or another perspective of looking at it, the perspective of electronics. That in this perspective also we can say that curl of magnetic field is equal to J plus del D by del T, but in the region where J is 0, still del D by del T exists as some kind of current density, and we call this displacement current density. Del D by del T, some kind of displacement current. It is some kind of current density, which is displacement current density, and it flows even in the vacuum. It flows even in the vacuum. That is nothing but the change in electric field. So now Maxwell's 4 equation becomes these with the change in the 4th equation, and you have a problem in which, okay, after Maxwell wrote his 4 equations, he could not find the experimental proof of this added term, because till that point there were no proof of this, why we are adding this term. Okay, let me tell you a simple story for 2 more minutes. Okay, we are moving towards the end of the lecture. We are still 10 minutes away from the end of the lecture. So let me tell you a story. I told you 2 perspectives. One perspective was mathematical, why we need displacement current. Another perspective was electronics perspective, why we need displacement current. Because if you are taking capacitor, then you must have some magnetic field, but if you take another surface, there was no magnetic field. So how to have that magnetic field? I gave you the proof here. Okay, now I made our 4 equations. Now there was third way how Maxwell thought about it. So how did Maxwell thought about these equations? Maxwell thought about these equations in a very, very wonderful manner. So he told that in a charge-free region, in a source-free region, I should not say charge-free region, in a source-free region, in a source-free region means there is no source. So in a source-free region, rho is also 0 and J is also 0. So both of these guys are 0 because the region does not have any source of producing any field. So in a source-free region, this divergence of D, how does it look like? Can anybody tell me? Maxwell did this actually. He thought about source-free. What is a source-free region? The room where you are sitting. In the room where you are sitting, there is no charge. There is no free charge around you. So there are no charges around you which are free to generate electric field. There are no currents around you. हवा में कोई current तो है नहीं, कोई charge नहीं है. So the room in which you are sitting is called a source-free region. This is a beautiful example of source-free region. And in source-free region, these equations reduces to, just don't look at the corrected part right now. What Maxwell did was he had this 4 equations. Now what he did was he considered those equations in source-free region. So how much this divergence of D will look like? Anybody quickly help me? 0. Okay, how much this divergence of B look like?
All of the equations will be 0.
Okay. Will this equation will be also 0? Because it is source-free region. I am telling source-free region. So rho and J are 0. So you just put rho and J 0. Nothing else. Okay, there can still be electric and magnetic field due to some other charges. तो इस रूम के बाहर कोई चार्ज है उसकी वजह से इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड मैग्नेटिक फील्ड हो सकता है, बट इस रीजन में कोई चार्ज नहीं. Okay, so in a source region there can be electric and magnetic field, but they are such that there is no divergence of electric field. उस रीजन में बाहर की चार्ज पड़े वहां से इधर इलेक्ट्रिक फील्ड हो सकता है उसकी वजह से, बाहर चार्ज चल रहा है उसकी वजह से इधर मैग्नेटिक फील्ड हो सकता है, बट इन दिस रूम इज सोर्स फ्री. So these laws will hold where J is 0 and rho is 0. Okay, are we all on the same page on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what Maxwell looked at, I'm sure one of you will also be able to look at this. ये equations देख के आपको क्या लग रहा है? Look at the first 2 equations. How do they look? How do they look like? Will you tell me? Look at the first 2 equations. Do they appear similar? Do they appear symmetrical? कि भाई electric field हो या magnetic field दोनों का divergence 0 ही होने वाला है. Can you see this? In a source-free region, the divergence of either electric field or magnetic field is 0. So these 2 equations are symmetrical. Really symmetrical. I hope you guys can see this symmetry.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so these 2 equations are symmetrical. This is how Maxwell thought about it. I am telling you the Maxwell side of the story. We heard another 2 sides of the story. Now this is the Maxwell side of the story. So Maxwell looked at these 2 equations and he found out that here you take curl of electric field, it is being obtained by change in magnetic field. But now the curl of magnetic field is 0. So let me add a term which shows me the change in electric field. So he just added it there because of the sake of symmetry. This is just to make the equations look symmetrical. No other purposes. Just to make these 2 equations look symmetrical, he added another term, and that term he named as displacement current. After adding it, he found out that yes, mathematically it is also needed. After mathematically needing it, he found out that yes, if you take the example of that capacitor, you also need it. And still people were not able to find this term in laboratory. But his instinct was so strong that nature must be symmetrical. So if you combine all the known laws of nature, they must look like symmetrical. They must look symmetrical. And this was the first point in the history. The first point in the history. Till then क्या हुआ था कि ऑर्स्टेड ने लेबोरेटरी में कुछ देखा, उसने लॉ बनाया. फेराडे ने लेबोरेटरी में कुछ देखा, उसने उस पे लॉ बनाया. So laws were made from the experimental observations, but for the first time in the history, this was the first change, I would say, in the history where law was first made, something correction was done there, and the experimental validation was done after this thing. After he added this because of the symmetry, then he found out that yes, symmetry is preserved if we add this, then now mathematics is also preserved, and then electronics is also preserved if we add this term. And just because of symmetry, he added this term. This is the brilliance of a scientist. Just because of the symmetry, he added this term, and just after he added this term, he was able to find out that yes, it is consistent with mathematics and electronics, both the subjects, and eventually he wrote his laws of four equations, but still scientists were not able to determine this term in the laboratory. And there is a rule of Nobel Prize Committee, that until your work is not verified experimentally, you won't get the Nobel Prize. Okay, so what happened was that during that time, somebody found it out in the laboratory as well, and Maxwell received the Nobel Prize. But why was it difficult for some years to find this term in the laboratory? Because of this example. Let's do this example. It is a very simple example. Here we want to compare the relative size of conduction current, which is J, conduction current density, displacement current density, which is del D by del T. If we compare their sizes, कि वो इसका order क्या है, इसका order क्या है, then we will easily realize that which one is easy to measure. इसको तो हमें एम्पियर, वो जो मिलीमीटर मल्टीमीटर होता है, उसको लेके तुरंत मेजर कर लेते हैं. But displacement current was not measured in the laboratory for some years after Maxwell gave this equations. After उसके भी कुछ साल तक किसी ने इसको पहले तो सीरियसली नहीं लिया. ये क्या होता है, सिमेट्री कोई करने का तरीका थोड़ी होता है काम करने का. But symmetry worked here and symmetry worked at many places in physics as well. तो ये कुछ टाइम तक नहीं मिला ये टर्म लेबोरेटरी में एक्सपेरिमेंटली. दिस एग्जांपल इज टू शो यू कि भाई वो क्यों नहीं मिला. So let's compare the relative sizes of these two guys flowing through a copper wire in which there is this field. What do you mean by this field? This field is oscillating with time. So एक copper wire है, उसके अंदर एक field है जो time के साथ oscillate कर रहा है. So this is not a steady field, stationary field. It is changing with time. It is a function of time. So in this unstationary situation, not so stationary situation for copper wire, we need to find these two guys. We are given that copper's conductivity sigma is this much, and copper's the permittivity of the free space is this much. Okay, so J, which is the current density, is given by sigma E. This is known as Ohm's law. I hope you know this, Ohm's law. For general purposes, for engineers and electronic students, it is written as V equal to IR. But this is most accurate form of Ohm's law. Why? Because this R also depends on temperature. As you increase the temperature, this R increases, and in the higher temperature region, this law does not hold, but this law still holds. Okay, so this is more accurate form of the Ohm's law. This is J equal to sigma E, and if you put it sigma times E, you can put it like this: sigma times E. At the place of E, you can write it E naught this. And if you take mod square of J, just to take this complex number out of the picture, it will look like sigma square E naught square, E naught's magnitude square. So this is magnitude of J square. Now let's try to find out the displacement current, D equal to epsilon 0 E, and at place of E you are writing this, and therefore del D by del T will look like this: minus I omega will come out of the picture. So del D by del T minus I omega epsilon naught E0 is this, and if you take mod square of it, this complex part will go off and this minus will become plus, and I square mod I becomes 1. So it is omega square epsilon naught square into E naught square. And if you do this, J square by del D by del T square, you will get this number: sigma square upon omega square epsilon naught square. And this number is quite big. This sigma is of the order of 10 to the power 7. So its square is of the order of, just I'm taking the order estimation, which is 10 raised to 14. This epsilon naught square is of the order of 10 raised to minus 24. And this omega is the angular frequency, and it is generally of the order of 10 raised to 12 to 10 raised to 14. Let's take the maximum value. So it is 10 raised to 28, but still this number is as big as 10 raised to 12 or 10 raised to 10. Sorry. So this number, the relative sizes of these two guys is of the order of 10 raised to 10. So J, what we can say is that mod J is 10 to the 5 times larger than del D by del T. If you take square root on the both sides, and what you can say is mod J is 10 to the 5 times larger than del D by del T. It means कि अगर आप इसका वैल्यू 1 एम्पियर पर मीटर स्क्वायर है, तो J का वैल्यू होगा 10 to the power 5 एम्पियर पर मीटर स्क्वायर. अब जनरली J का वैल्यू ही मिली एम्पियर पर मीटर स्क्वायर में होता है, ठीक है. दिस वैल्यू इज इन इटसेल्फ जनरली इन आवर लेबोरेटरी एक्सपेरिमेंट इट इज इन मिली एम्पियर पर मीटर स्क्वायर. So this is even smaller. It is in nano ampere per meter square generally del D by del T. So that is why it is really difficult to measure this term in laboratory. और इसीलिए कुछ साल लगे इसको मेजर होने में, but eventually somebody find out in his or her laboratory और मैक्सवेल भैया को नोबेल प्राइज मिला. Okay, so thank you for this attending this class wisely. Now I am open for any question.